Penguin Random House Audio presents The Scaffold Effect, Raising Resilient, Self-Reliant, and Secure Kids in an Age of Anxiety. This is the author, Harold S. Koplewicz, M.D. Note to listeners, the names and identifying details of the stories in this book have all, except when indicated about friends and family with their permission, been altered to preserve confidentiality. To Joshua, Adam, and Sam, the greatest joy of my life is being a father. As much as I've taught my 3 sons, they have taught me so much more. Introduction. A family came to see me recently because the son, a 6-year-old boy named Henry, was kicked out of his first grade class. He got frustrated during a reading lesson and started throwing pencils and growling like a gorilla at another student. The teacher was so unnerved, the school administrators told the parents he wasn't allowed back until he'd been evaluated by a professional. Physically, Henry was angelic. His parents were all-American good-looking, tall with firm handshakes. They were obviously upset and embarrassed about their son's outburst and his being kicked out of class. They were worried he might have attention deficit, hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, anxiety, or a behavioral problem. Henry's father asked, "Is the school overreacting?" That was what we had to find out. After speaking with Henry for a few minutes, it was clear that his verbal skills were terrific. He was shy at first, but when he talked about summer sports, he had a glint in his eye. He eventually revealed the reason he got so upset during that lesson. The kid next to him had made fun of how slowly he was writing his letters and called him dumb. I took out a book and he tried to read it, but clearly couldn't decode, meaning he couldn't make the connection between a letter and a specific sound. Henry admitted that he was slower than the other kids and that dumb remark hit home. Quickly, we determined that Henry has some kind of dyslexia, like his mother and grandfather, not a behavioral issue. I have no idea why his teachers hadn't figured that out after 2 years, but suffice it to say he needed a diagnostic evaluation that would include specialized testing to evaluate his academic strengths and weaknesses with special emphasis on his reading skills, and then remediation to deal with the problem. Dyslexia is treatable. With help, this bright child would learn to read. At the end of the session, Henry's parents had a plan of action to fix the problem, and Henry felt so much better about himself. The strategies we discussed focused on support, therapeutic, and emotional, to teach him not only how to cope with the practical problems of having a learning disability, but his and his parents' acceptance of it. When he left, Henry hugged me and asked when we'd see each other again. It's been several months since that first session. Henry is in an intensive reading program that uses a multi-sensory approach, and the specialized testing determined he qualifies for extra time on tests. Along with learning how to read, he's learning to accept his dyslexia, not as something to be ashamed of, but as a part of who he is. It'll always take him longer to read, but he will make the necessary adjustments. Years from today, when he's applying to colleges and taking the SATs, he will be entitled to receive extra time, and he'll have a decade's worth of time management training and the confidence that comes from overcoming challenges to back him up. In a way, he'll be better prepared for the rigors of the process than his peers who don't have a learning disability. His parents' role is to guide Henry to accept and own his problem, understand what he needs, and show him how to cope. In effect, they will train him from a very young age to be an adult. With this parental guidance, Henry will be able to turn a deficit or weakness into a strength. I've seen it happen too many times to count. The whole family will look back at the dumb bad day as a blip. However, if Henry's parents had insisted that nothing was wrong, as many do when they're upset, embarrassed, or defensive, and reacted by switching schools or blaming the teachers, Henry's problems would have only gotten worse, and the trajectory of his life would have been altered. If left untreated, dyslexia is linked with self-harm, suicide, and antisocial behaviors. 70% of kids in the juvenile justice system have dyslexia. If his parents had overreacted and gone to the other extreme, treating Henry as if he were damaged goods who would never manage on his own, they could have harmed him just as severely. The parents weren't happy about the situation, but they put aside their discomfort, got their son the help he needed, and in so doing prevented a host of potentially serious problems for him and the whole family down the road. Being able to prevent problems and minimize suffering very early on in someone's life is why I decided to specialize in child and adolescent psychiatry. I can treat a kid for 6 months and significantly improve his functioning and behavior before unhealthy patterns are locked in. Getting early, effective care for children and families who are suffering is also why I founded the Child Mind Institute in 2009. I was convinced we needed an independent, nonprofit, dedicated to children's mental health to confront a public health crisis. According to the findings of the Child Mind Institute's Children's Mental Health Report, 17 million kids under the age of 18 have a diagnosable mental health disorder. That's 1 in 5. More kids are affected by mental illness than asthma, peanut allergies, diabetes, and cancer combined. And yet, 2/3 of them will never get help due to misinformation and stigma. This leads to increased risk for school dropout, substance use disorders, suicidal ideation, and attempts. At the Child Mind Institute clinical centers in New York City and the San Francisco Bay Area, our team of clinicians interacts with children in need and their parents every day. We've changed the lives of more than 10,000 young people from 48 states and 44 nations. We are also always looking for and innovating ways of helping more children in need. Through our school and community programs, we've reached more than 100,000 children in communities across the country. Our interactive website, childmind.org, brings hope and answers to over 2 million visitors a month. And our cutting-edge open science research program is pursuing the biomarkers of mental health disorders that will revolutionize diagnosis and treatment. We share our data freely with thousands of scientists around the world, accelerating discovery. The vision of the Child Mind Institute is a future where no child suffers. And to address this crisis, we have built a movement that cuts across the silos of research, medicine, and community programs. Still, our most important alliance is with parents. Despite the tremendous volume of care we provide and the diversity of our patients, we couldn't help noticing common issues and concerns among the parents. They are all worried they're making mistakes that will hurt their kids. They worry about doing too much for their children or not doing enough. They wonder if they should be harder on them or if they're not tough enough. No matter the reason that brings them to the Child Mind Institute, an underlying concern is common to all. Will their kids grow up to be self-reliant? Every day we all hear new stats and studies about college grads moving back home for good, that parents continue to support their kids financially into their 20s and 30s and beyond. Many parents have told me they're afraid for their kids' ability to deal with the challenges of life on their own. What if something happens to me and I won't be there to make sure everything's okay? They ask. I understand parents' fears and their frustrations. Before their kids were born, they fantasized about raising a future president, a neurosurgeon, or an artist. It's only natural to go into parenting with a rosy vision of what it's going to be like. The group hugs, proud mama moments in the front row, Instagram
Sample complete. Ready to continue?